Mother's Day by J B Priestley. If you follow the value points and the question answers, I'm sure you'll get very good marks. Mother's Day is the story of a mother, Mrs. Pearson, who is both ignored and snubbed by her family on a daily basis. She is treated like a servant. She has to face a lot of humiliation and embarrassment every day from her son Cyril, daughter Doris, and husband George Pearson. He too has turned a blind eye towards his middle aged wife. Her life takes a turn when she is guided by her neighbor, Mrs. Fitzgerald. That is, after she discusses about her family members and their harsh attitude and unruly behavior. Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is a very strong and rational person, advises her to exchange their personalities to teach a lesson to her errant family members. At first, Mrs. Pearson is hesitant as she loves her family a lot and she can't tolerate them being reprimanded or scolded by Mrs. Fitzgerald. But when the latter encourages her and makes her realize the pains she bears due to them, she agrees to exchange her personality with Mrs. Fitzgerald. Miss Fitzgerald casts a spell, as a result of which she is in the body of Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Pearson is in the body of Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now let us understand the theme of the play. Students, when you read about the theme of the play, you should be able to answer the long answer type questions such as what are the issues raised by this play? The play raises a serious issue regarding the status of a woman in a family and the proper appreciation of a housewife's role and responsibilities. The job of a mother in a family is actually a 24-hour job, and she does not even have the luxury of enjoying any weekend or holiday. Those people who work 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week treat the house lady as an unpaid domestic servant who must carry out their orders. They neither request her to do their work nor thank her for her services. The popular notion is that only those who are in service have to work hard. The mother who stays at home has a leisurely life. The other members of the family always take the work that the mother does at home for granted, but give her no credit for that. Another issue that this play raises is the role of the mother in the upbringing of children. The mother needs to be firm and assertive every now and then with her children and husband, reminding them that the work she does is a round the clock work and is valued much more than theirs. If she, like Mrs. Pearson, turns out to be too soft in her attitude towards her children and husband, then they are bound to be led astray and spoiled, as is the case with Cyril and Doris Pearson. Always a little bit of caution, cold looks, strong words, and body language from the mother can help the family to become orderly and healthy. Dear students, now we are going to take up the character sketches. They can help you in answering short answer type questions as well as give you value points for long answer types. Mrs. Pearson is a timid and docile lady. She is in her 40s. She is a devoted housewife. She enjoys serving her husband and children. But she is ignored and made to work throughout the day. In spite of their ill treatment, neglect, and exploitation, she loves them all. She tolerates everything without any murmur or protest. The readers feel sympathy for her, but she needs to be a little more assertive. However, Mrs. Fitzgerald brings about a change in her personality and helps her to become more authoritative and dominating. Miss Fitzgerald is an experienced and smart lady. She knows some esoteric magic that she learned in the East. She has a strong and sinister personality. She is liberated and dominating. She is a bold woman who lives life on her own terms. She smokes and plays cards. She has a deep voice and has an Irish accent. Mrs. Fitzgerald is firm and result oriented. She sets all the spoiled members of Mrs. Pearson's family right. Mr. George Pearson is Mrs. Pearson's spoiled husband. He is haughty, pompous, arrogant, and self important. He is an indifferent husband. He is predominantly focused on his own comfort, ease, and happiness, and is careless about his domestic duties. He is unconcerned about his wife's wishes and pain. He spends most of his free time at the club hanging around with his friends playing snooker. Quite ironically, his friends make fun of him, calling him Pompey Ompy Pearson. He is ultimately brought to the reality of his actual social situation and starts caring for his wife. Doris Pearson is the perfectly spoiled daughter of Mrs. Pearson. She is a pretty girl in her early 20s. She wants to be waited upon and served by her mother all the time. She orders her as if Mrs. Pearson were the servant in the house. She asks her mother to iron her yellow silk. She expects tea to be served to her. She takes no permission for going out with her boyfriend, who, according to her mother, is worthless. She weeps in every possible situation and is highly immature. Cyril Pearson. Cyril is the masculine counterpart of Doris. He is also spoiled, like his sister. He is equally pampered and immature. He is in the habit of treating his mother very casually. He asks if tea is ready and gets very angry because it isn't. He makes his mother run all the time, doing one thing or the other. He also wants to be waited upon by his mother and pays no attention to her. He is engrossed in his own outdoor life, just like the other members of the family, busy with late night partying and betting on horse racing. And now is the time for some question answers. Who is Mrs. Fitzgerald? What does she advise Mrs. Pearson? Answer. Mrs. Fitzgerald is Mrs. Pearson's neighbor and friend. She is a fortune teller who has learnt the art from the East. She advises Mrs. Pearson to put her foot down and be the mistress of her own house and the boss of her own family. Her running after and taking their orders had spoiled them. She should be firm with them so that they treat her properly. The next question. What do Doris and Cyril feel about their mother's strange behavior? Answer. Doris and Cyril feel that there is something wrong with their mother as she is not behaving like her usual self. She had been smoking and playing cards. Doris noticed something different in her style of speaking. She speculated that mother could have hit her head against something and got a concussion, but Cyril rubbished the idea. What is Mrs. Fitzgerald's opinion about Charlie Spence? Mrs. Fitzgerald has a very poor opinion about Charlie Spence. She considers him to be a poor match for Doris, as he is neither good looking nor intelligent. He is buck-toothed and half-witted, and if she were Doris's age, she would have found someone better or given herself up as a bad job. The next question: what were Cyril's faults as expressed by Mrs. Pearson? Answer: according to Mrs. Pearson, Cyril spoke rudely with her. If there was some work at home that he didn't want to do, he did not do it. Even at work, if there was something he disliked, he and his co workers got the union to bar it. He spent too much time and money at greyhound races and dirt tracks and ice shows. The next question: what does Mrs. Fitzgerald tell George about people's conception about him in the club? Answer: Mrs. Fitzgerald tells George that he is a standing joke for the other club members who call him Pompey Ompy Pearson, as they think that he is very slow and pompous. They laugh behind his back because he leaves his wife at home instead of going out with her, which makes him appear like a fool. Now, one long answer type question for you. Discuss some of the humorous situations of the play. The play raises some serious issues, but their treatment is comic. The playwright makes use of subtle humor, which makes the play interesting. It is funny to watch the whimsical Doris being scolded for preparing to go out and her inability to even iron her own dress. Mrs. Fitzgerald's comments on Charlie Spence, Doris's reaction to them, her frivolous weeping because she is not even capable of doing her own work, make us laugh. Doris and Cyril's hushed discussion about the possible cause of her mother's strange behavior and the immature suggestion about a concussion is amusing. When Mr. Pearson finds his wife drinking wine for the first time and expresses his disbelief, she comments confidently. She makes Mr. Pearson appear like a fool through his refusal of the tea that he never wanted. Her comments about what others think about George in the club and his reaction to them, and threatening to beat up her husband as a reaction to his uncivil behavior towards Mrs. Fitzgerald, are hilarious. That was the end of my lesson. If you liked and learned, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel.